Hi everyone, Chris Petri here. Welcome. We're going to do a wonderful Extreme Beginners video. We're going to do this lovely painting of a scene, maybe something you'd see in Italy, in Venice, maybe lots of beautiful water channels, boats, beautiful homes along the water, buildings, condominiums, townhouses, all kinds of interesting architecture, and then that feel of the beautiful water and trees and bushes and plants and things like that, flowers all along the gorgeous scenery here. It's more or less kind of like a cityscape type painting or a street scene, but it's also got a boat in it and some water, so this is kind of like a combination painting. I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing this. I'll explain everything, the whole process, every step of the way for you, and we'll have a lot of fun of it. And it's actually, if you're just new here for the first time, welcome aboard. Thanks for coming by. You'll really find that my teachings here on YouTube are very straightforward. I try to cover the same methods and techniques every video, so you're going to get the same information as far as techniques and methods all the time on a constant basis, which will reinforce it and help you to have those techniques and methods incorporated into your painting style. And then we'll also change, though, and do different subject matter. So maybe not everyone likes a scene like this. Maybe you like flowers or still lifes or maybe some figure painting or whatever. So you, as long as you come by and at least watch the videos, even if you're maybe not so happy with the subject matter, at least you're watching the videos, you'll learn about the techniques and methods over and over and over again. And the more you hear them and see them and watch me paint and discuss all the different methods and techniques we do use, those will become part of your habits and your techniques, and it'll serve you well, and your paintings will get much better. So I'm really excited if you're here for the first time. I'm just going to explain how we do things here, and the rest of you that are joining along, great job. I know everyone's working tremendously hard out there on their artwork and practicing their drawing and painting, and I'm getting some great comments in the comments section. Everyone's very happy with everything that we do here, as well as people are sending me paintings in my email. I'm seeing gorgeous looking paintings, so everyone's coming along really beautifully. I always look at people I look at people's artwork when they send me artwork. I look back at my old paintings that I've done years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, and people are making incredible progress. It took me a long time, and I think I made a lot of mistakes as I went along in the very beginning in my first 2 or 3 years, because I just didn't have the right practice habits and wasn't focusing on the right things. So what I try to do is, on this channel, is focus on the good things that are going to really make for good progress on your end. So I'm really happy you're here. We'll get started. I'll zoom in here. So this will be the first painting we're going to do. And you can kind of see the water, the boat. So we have everything, the boat here, the water, the buildings. The buildings are dark tonal values, and they get lighter as they go into the distance. That gives you that feeling of distance as the buildings and apartment buildings and townhouses and condominiums and things go into the distance here. They get lighter. And then we have more contrast and more exciting color in this close-up part of the painting, the foreground with the building and the bushes and trees here, and the boat and some details and some figures in the boat. So you'll see how we do this all. I just wanted to show you this close-up. You can also do a screen capture of this painting if you can, or maybe you take a picture of it with your phone from the TV or the computer you have, whether it's a laptop or an iPad or some sort of pad device, or maybe a desktop computer. So maybe you have your monitor. You can take a picture of your monitor with your cell phone, and then you can use your cell phone as your subject matter. You can set that up across from you and then work from that. So we're going to start in just a second, and we'll do the pencil drawing first. So we'll just a number 2 office pencil we'll use, and we'll do a drawing of this scene, and we'll paint it after that. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back in business here. We're working towards getting our painting started here with our pencil drawing. First thing, though, we wanted to do is, this can be really helpful for you, and I hope you'll use this technique when you're creating your paintings. The reason I say this is because it's really helpful if you're going to put your paintings in frames and if you're going to mat them and frame them. So we have a really nice mat here. This is a 5x7 approximately. I think it's a 4.5 by 6.5 viewing window. So you can see how that's a nice kind of off-white, maybe kind of like a sand color, which is really nice. This matches most paintings you do in watercolor, a sand type color. I find that your very, very light mats like this, either a sand color, cream, beige, very, very light off-white type colors, really work great with most all your watercolor paintings you're going to find. I tend to see that most watercolor artists do use these very light mats. Sometimes you will see artists use dark mats as well, maybe like, it depends, but I think you'll see most times artists will use very, very light, watercolor artists anyway, very, very light white mats when they mat their paintings and frame them. So anyway, that's, if we use this mat to start with when we have our paper, what we do is we take the mat and we use this as our frame size of where we're going to do our painting. So this way, when we paint it, it's not going to be too small or too large to fit within this mat opening here, the opening, this viewing window. So if you drop it onto your painting, it's going to fit just right. So you're not painting, you know, outside of this border and losing your information when you go to put a mat on it. You can always cut custom mats, but it's very extremely difficult. I have a very fancy mat cutter at my studio, and I just find it's too difficult to be constantly trying to measure and cut for custom mats for my paintings. So I'm trying to get more in the habit of doing this, which is putting down a mat first and tracing out the borders of my rectangle. And I want you to do that too, because many of your paintings are going to come out really good, and you're going to want to put them in frames and put mats and put them in frames, and you can give them as gifts. You can hang a couple up on your wall that you like. You can sell a few if you want, whatever you want to do. But you're the artist. You decide what you want to do with your paintings when they're done. But I would say definitely start matting and framing your paintings, even if you're just starting out and you're an extreme beginner. Try to mat and frame some of your paintings, the ones that come out the best, and you put them up on your wall or in your studio or in your kitchen or your living room, bedroom, wherever you want to put them. Put some paintings up and be happy and proud of them, because it takes time and it takes effort to do these paintings, and that's part of the process, is putting up your paintings and enjoying it and having fun with it. So let's continue on here. So again, my goal is to make sure I'm starting out correctly by putting a correct sizing for my rectangle that I'm doing. Now here, if I do this really light with a pencil, like so, very, very lightly, extremely lightly, so you can barely see it. And then that's our area that we're going to paint inside, but we want to go outside that a little bit, that border. So feel free to paint outside this border. So maybe we make it a little larger. So you can always take this and say, okay, I'm going to make it a little larger, just so I have a little extra room, like that. And just make a rough, a little bit larger area, just so you have some wiggle room. And then you take a kneaded eraser like this, and you just lift up on this. And you lift up that very, very light pencil line that you did with the mat on top. And now your new border is this hand-drawn one we just did. And you could do it with a ruler too to make it larger, but you want to make it larger than this. So you want to take this one first, super light, just about barely visible sketch line for your window. You've got to be at least that much of your painting has to fill this area. Then you take it off and make it a little larger, so you have a little more room to expand out. So you can, this way when you put your mat on, you can move it around a little bit and have a little bit of room to adjust it. And that's it. And that's really how simple that is, that process. And you can buy these in any size. They come in 20, 30 different sizes, your mats, from very, very small to very, very large. So however big or small your paintings are, you just do this same process. You purchase one of these, or you find out what the measurements are of your standard mat sizes, and then you just draw those onto your paper. So you don't necessarily have to have a mat. You just want to make sure your rectangle that you're painting in is a standard size so that you can purchase a mat for it, drop it on, put it in a frame, and you're good to go. So let's keep moving here. So now we have our new rectangle, and then let's just put some tape down. We want to tape around that border. So I just simply put some artist tape like so, just so you have a nice, crisp, clean border around your painting once you're completed. And then you lift off your tape and it's almost like you have a mat or a frame around your painting, which makes it look much better. Try to always put tape around your works, even if it's practice things. Even if it's a small practice composition, try to put some tape around it. Makes it look so much better. You can pin it up on the wall then in your studio, in your house. You could put it on your refrigerator, whatever. Put your best ones up that you make. Okay, so we have that. Now we're going to use our reference painting, which is here. So I'm going to set this across from me. And again, in the beginning of my video, I had the reference painting that we're using right there on the beginning of that. So you want to hit pause on that and paint from that one. And once we're done sketching, maybe you can hit pause on your video and on your phone or your computer, and you can draw from the finished pencil drawing. So the first thing we notice is that this is basically lots of subject matter filling up the whole rectangle here. And so let's start out. I'm going to contour draw this, which means I'm just going to look at my photograph or my painting. So I'm using this. It could be a picture, a photograph, a magazine picture from a magazine, a book. It could be something you're looking at out the window, or you might be outdoors in a park and you're drawing something out there. Wherever it is, I'm taking my pencil and I'm just going to start at one place and carefully work my way around. Now, the key to this is some tree shapes over here. The key to this is when you're just starting out and you're beginning, you're going to want to put some hash marks around your drawing. So if this is, let's say, a picture from a book, or if it's a painting or something that you found online, like a photograph, you'll just take this and say, where is this roof over here? Well, it's about here. It's just a little bit down from the top, and you would put a hash mark here. So you sort of have that. And then you can say, well, where is this wall here? This is this is like a seawall along the water, and it's only about a little bit up from the bottom up here. So you can make another hash mark here and say, all right, that's where that's got to go. So already we have some things established. We have the top of the roof here, where we make a hash mark there, and then this here is just a little bit up from the bottom. That's there. And then over here, we could say the buildings over here, they start pretty low. Maybe about, you can use your pencil as like a guide and say, where does that building start? Well, it's about the same level as this wall. So you can take this wall over here, this seawall, and go across and just say that's the same place where these buildings start here. The bottoms of the buildings start here, and these townhouses and condominiums and apartment buildings, they start over here, and then they go diagonally this way. So we sort of have that. And then we say, how far over is this edge of the roof here? Well, if we look at the painting, it's about a little bit past the halfway point. So we look here and say, well, this is about the halfway point from here to here. So that's our halfway point. It's a little bit past the halfway point. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but we did notice that in this picture, if the halfway point of our painting is there, it is a little bit past, like that. So that's all we want to do, is make that mark here, say this is the center or the halfway point, and there the roof goes to about there, and we have it. There we go. And then what about over here? Well, the apartment buildings over here are about this wide up here, and they come down like that, and they slowly go this way, and how about this angle here? How do we get that angle? Well, we would say it angles down about 1/3 of the picture down. But before we figure this out, let's let's get this here. That's about center of the picture, maybe. This edge of the, this home here, this really beautiful home here. Let's see. That's about center, maybe a little bit to the right. So we have that wall that comes down like this. And then we say, okay, now we have that line. Now, where does this line comes down like this? This goes to about a little bit above that wall. So if we make this wall over this way, and we just lightly trace it in there, it goes a little bit past the edge of the house over here. There's going to be bushes and things over here and trees, but we're just using lines now to get our where we're going to be. There, like that. Okay, that's the edge of the wall, the seawall here. And then we said up a little bit from here is where this line angles towards, like this. So that's how we get our angle. Because if we look at this painting, we can kind of see it's the angle of the buildings over here going in the distance this way is just a little bit above that wall. You see how that wall's there? And if you use the pencil as your tool to measure and to gauge your angles, you'll say, okay, well, where does this go? Well, it's like that. It's not a steep angle like this. It's sort of a soft angle like that, or a less steep angle like that. So it's just like that. And it's kind of like just above that wall down here in the boat. So it's where the boat and the wall is, that angle's just a little bit above there. So we just say there's the wall, the boat's over here, and it's just a little bit above that. So even a little bit of a softer angle. Maybe we could adjust it just a little more. I take my eraser and just lift up a little bit. No need to do too much because it's going to be painted over, so you're not going to see the lines too much, the pencil lines. So there we have it. So that's about the angle. And that's all we have to do. We have everything now. And then we say, well, where are the buildings angling this way? You could even just transfer it like this. You can say, here's the pencil. I'm resting it on the painting, or it could be a photograph or something you printed online, or you can go right up to a screen of a computer and hold it up and then just try to get that same angle as you come down onto the paper. So, but here we have the painting, so we'll use this. And then I just take this and transfer it over like that. I don't change the angle, I just leave it like that. Okay, and then I just put that there. And I say it roughly angles down to this point here, so I'm okay with that. So up here, we're angling down this way. Just a soft line to get our buildings like that. And then we're just going to do, the buildings are going to sort of step like this. So now you see how I've got my angles, how I've kind of used hash marks, and I use my pencil to get my angles. You can, again, hold this up to a computer screen or your phone and kind of get the angles kind of correct. You know, you try your best to hold your pencil up and say, okay, on the computer screen, it looks like that angle's not quite perfectly straight, but it's on a little bit of an angle. And then you take that and hold it just like that up, and then you just transfer it down like that. And you get the angles. And you can do that, and it works pretty good. I do that a lot, and it tends to work well. It would be much closer. You'd get your angles much closer doing it this way with your pencil, like that, holding things up and looking at things like that, than just sort of doing it by eye or kind of guessing at it. Your pencil's an incredible tool. Please use it. It really helps. And that's all you have to do. And especially if you're outdoors and you're trying to get angles outdoors, you just hold your pencil in front of you and check your angles. You look at your pencil and you hold it up to something you're looking at in the distance, maybe a building, and you say, okay, that building is straight up like that. Oh, the angle of the roof on that building is like this or like that. And you just do it that way. Much easier than guessing. All right, so now we have our angles. Let's continue to draw here. And so we have we're going to get our boat in. So our boat starts over here. And it goes up like this. Like that. Okay. Okay, so we have our boat there. What I'm going to do is just kind of lightly sketch some things in, and then I'll contour draw over this. Okay, so once you have those light pencil sketch lines in, then you can use your drawing again, but now you have some guides and some lines here so that you can just go in, and I'm going to start drawing a little bit darker. Maybe I'll use a darker pencil. So this way we can see the pencil line, and I'm just gonna, I'm doing some tree shapes and things, and bushes, like that. Then up here we'll do a few windows. Okay, we're going to do a few windows. And there's maybe a door over here, and there's some, maybe some railings and a door. Okay, so we have that. We're going to do a shadow under the eave of this roof here. We'll do a chimney up here. And I'll just continue to draw. I'm going to go through, I'm going to get the rest of my tree shapes here, just some indications of trees and bushes. We'll paint most of all that information in once we start painting. We don't need to get too fussy with that. Let's just make sure we understand these are the bushes and trees over here, and that's good. And then we have the seawall here. So we have that. And we have our boat. Let's get our boat in here. And then let's do our buildings over here. So I'm going to start up here, and then I'm just going to trail these buildings this way. Just stepping down the buildings like this in a stepwise fashion. Doesn't have to be perfect, just some loose lines. We're going to paint this all in. This line here I want to paint in because it's closer to us. And we always remember, the closer things are in your painting, they're going to be more detailed and darker in tonal value, more vibrant colors. And then as things go into the distance, to create that illusion of distance, you're going to make these lighter. So you're going to paint light washes back here. We'll show you how to do that when we start painting. I just want to mention that now so you're kind of prepared already in your mind. And then here, just some loose shoreline here that goes like that. And that's all you really need for information. Maybe we will do some windows over here, just some sketching some windows. Like that, because this is close up. We need some details close up here. Like that. And then here, maybe a few more. And as the buildings get smaller, the windows get very small. So you can make little small indications of some windows here, nothing too much. And by the time these buildings over here, we can't even see any windows anymore. So everything kind of gets misty and light and foggy looking over here. And then over here it's more vibrant colors, and you'll see a lot of detail here, just like our picture, our painting. Much more details over here, dark windows, darker windows, but then they get lighter, as you can see. And then by the time we're far in the distance with all these buildings here and architecture, very, very light and not much details at all. So you don't have to worry about drawing anything in back here. And of course, most of the details are right here. The boat and the beautiful house and the bushes and trees and the water. So in the wall, the beautiful seawall here, masonry, brick seawall. Or stone, might be stone too as well. So there we have it. That's our pencil drawing. I hope you'll have fun doing this and take your time with your pencil drawing. I'll do some clay pots on the top of the chimney there. And Once we take a break, we're going to come back and we'll start painting, and you'll see how much the painting process goes a little bit quicker. It's not as much time. It takes a little more time to get your drawing correct and all that. Take your time, take breaks when you're doing your drawing. Don't try to draw everything in one go. Maybe try to do 2 or 3 sections. Maybe do 2 or 3 sections. Maybe do your roof first and your building first with your windows. And then maybe, well, first thing you want to do is get your lines, get your hash marks, so you kind of can see where your main points are that you want to make sure you're on those main points like this. The seawall over here along the bottom of the buildings, the seawall here, the roof up here, the edge of the roof here, which is a little bit to the right of the center. And then up here, you're starting out with your first vertical line with your building over here on the right, and that's going to be right about here. And then you just remember, you check your angles. You can kind of see this is about a 45-degree angle. Like if you were to take a ruler and go across this picture like this, diagonally from corner to corner, it's a little bit, it's not quite 45 degrees. So if you were to take it and you start checking the angles, 45 degrees is here. So if you dial it back, maybe that's like 35-degree angle, approximately. 30 degrees, 35. So you can use a ruler too and check things. You can check things with a ruler the same way you would with a pencil. Pencil's a little quicker because you're already working with your pencil, so you can just use your pencil to get some angles, approximate angles. And again, let's take a break. Thanks again. And I always say, if you like this video and if you like my channel, please subscribe. It's right on the right-hand side, the button for subscribe. You click that button. This way you'll get my videos each week as we work together. And the main thing is, too, you'll won't lose my videos. So, maybe sometimes you might see this video and then you go to find me the next time and you can't find my videos. Well, that's okay. It happens to me and everybody else on the internet. Things get a little bit, you can't always remember what the name of the person is you're following or the video name. So if you click the subscribe button, you won't lose me. You'll find me the next time because I'll be in your saved settings. So you'll be one step ahead. You won't have to go looking for my videos anymore. You'll be subscribed, and then you won't have to worry about that. And you'll save time. Okay, all right, so we'll come right back in just a second. We'll start painting. That's the fun part. And see you in just a second. All right, we are getting back to our painting now. We have our brushes. We're going to basically, I use three brushes here. When we're doing the Extreme Beginner series, we're using less expensive brushes. When you're just starting out as a beginner in watercolor, you're not going to want to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on fancy brushes and paints. Unless you want to, you can do that too, that's fine. But I would say when you're starting out, it is really good if you can to at least, if you want to buy, it's up to you, whatever your budget is. Everyone's budget's different. So you buy the art materials that you can with your budget, the best you can. Research things, of course, and YouTube is a great wealth of knowledge when it comes to people that do all kinds of critiques and informationals on art supplies, art brushes, papers. I used to binge watch years ago when I first started watercolor. I was watching at least an hour a day or more of YouTube videos on what brushes to buy, what papers to buy, what's the difference, what's the best ones, what's the worst ones. I always made it a point to try to learn as much as I could about my art materials and things like that. And I have some videos on my brushes I use and my palettes and things like that. You can look those up, You just type in Chris Petri and type in whatever word you're looking. Like if you're looking for brushes, you type in Chris Petri brushes or Chris Petri paper, Chris Petri palette. That's all you do. You just type in my name, and I'll have a few videos on those things. Just maybe not as detailed as some other artists might have, but at least a couple of things about it, maybe a 20 or minute or a half an hour video on my palettes, my colors, and all that good stuff. So you can look those up too. and you have to maybe look for more detailed things on brushes. You know, you might have to look at other people's videos. So I encourage everybody to do as much research as you can. So for beginners brushes, I would say it's really good if you can start with brushes that are synthetic or a synthetic blend. Because if you go with all natural hair brushes in the beginning, when you first start, it might be a little more difficult to paint. Because natural hair brushes, they actually hold a lot more water. And that might mean that you're going to start flooding out your palette with too much water and flooding too much paper, water on your paper when you're painting. So the natural and good thing about using synthetic brushes like these are synthetics, and they're less expensive too, synthetic brushes. The good thing about them is they hold less water, so when you're painting, you're going to have less of a problem with adding too much water to your paint. Because a lot of artists, I think, have that problem where they add too much water to their washes when they're painting. It's just natural. I did it when I first started too. So just that being said, I have 3 brushes here. I have the brush that comes with the Prang Oval 16 set. So you get a brush with that, and it's a really nice detailed round brush. And then I have a little bit of a larger brush, and this one's kind of easy to find. Simply Simmons number 6 round brush. It's a synthetic brush, and it's also kind of like a pearl white color, so it's kind of unique looking. You can find that online too. And then I have a Princeton flat brush, which you can kind of see is about a 5/8 inch brush, 5/8 inch wide brush, like that. And it's got like a wood looking handle on it, so that's kind of easy to find too. So these are 3 of the brushes, and you can find something similar, but you know, this one comes with the set. And then these 2, you know, each of them might be $5 each, something like that. Maybe not even that much. I think I got this in a set with other brushes for like $5. So, you know, you could see the bargains out there online. But again, if you're just starting out, you know, you might not like watercolor, so you don't want to spend too much money. But, you know, you want to get something halfway decent to paint with. And these are some really good starter quality art supplies to begin with. So now we're starting out. I have one of these Holbein spritzer bottles. These are great to have, and they're not too expensive. And they sell them in the dollar stores and whatever. I pick up some dollar store stuff once in a while, and so I buy these at the dollar store too. They have little spray bottles. No big deal. It's not going to break the budget. And then what I like to do is, we're starting a new painting. Let's always start with a fresh, clean palette when we're painting a new painting. And we even want to clean up our palette as we go through a painting, depending on how big the painting is and how much how many colors we're using. But for this painting, I think we'll probably be able to do the whole painting with just using all of these wells here. Should probably be able to handle that. So we have that clean palette, fresh, clean water. So I'm going to empty out my water and put in fresh, clean water. So I have an empty orange juice container. I use that, and I fill up a bucket canteen container. We can also use these collapsible water containers by Holbein. They make these. These are really great. You can kind of squish them down and make them really small to throw in a backpack if you want to go outdoors and paint a little bit of outdoors scenes, doing some sketch work outdoors. And that's pretty much it. So we have everything ready to go. We use tissues to take water off our brush, so we always pretty much rinse the brush out in the container, tap a little bit on a tissue to get some of the water off. We don't want a brush that's flooded with water when we're painting, most times. And then we go to the paints. And then what I do is, once I clean my palette, I just spritz some water onto these paints just to get them a little bit moist and activated, so we're ready to paint. They're already activated, just a little bit though, not too much. There we go. And then that should be fine. So we're going to start out here. Let's start with the darks first. And I think we'll start with the darks. Let's see. Now this is going to be a la Prima painting, which means we're just going to start with the darks first in our painting and just paint through the whole painting. And we're not really going to do those large washes over the whole painting and then let them dry. We're going to just paint this all at one time, a la Prima style as we call it. And we're going to take some black up here. I noticed these praying palettes, the black is very, very strong. So keep that up here in the one corner, your black, just to have that up here. That's going to really be a really powerful color for you. And you want to sort of, when you're working with black watercolor like this in this paint set here, you know, when you use the black, just rinse off your brush a little bit because it is a very, very dark color and it can really affect lighter colors like yellow and green and orange and blue even. So, you know, you just try to be mindful of, if you're using a really dark color, you just might want to rinse the brush off once you get some of that black out onto the palette. No problem, you just rinse off your brush. Same thing if you were using a dark blue or a purple. You know, you'd want to rinse off your brush and just keep aware of that. But it's okay to mix and mingle your colors for the most part. But this black is very, very strong, so you just want to be mindful of that. And then you go in with some brown and some orange here, some red. Now the oranges and reds and browns, we can mix those up together. That's not going to harm anything, or should be fine doing that. And then you kind of mix them in the middle like that, so you get a whole variation, dark, black, and then you mix in your reds and oranges and browns here just to kind of get a variation of color. You like to have that. So that's the first bit of color we're going to start with, so let's do that. And we'll start doing our windows and doors. So let's do this. Let's start getting our windows and doors in. And what I do is when I paint, I'm right-handed. If you might be left-handed. If you're left-handed, you'd start over here like this, and you'd paint over here and start your windows up here with your left hand. And I'm a little bit shaky with my left hand here. Obviously, I'm a right-handed person, but I could learn how to paint with my left hand probably pretty easily. And then, but since I'm right-handed, I'm going to start on this side of the painting and then work this way. So if you're left-handed, you're going to maybe start over here and then work this way. Does that make sense? So that you're not leaning into your paints. So that's a good thing if you can remember that when you're working with watercolors. You know, you want to rest your hand on your paper like this so you have a nice, firm, stable brush technique. So my hand is resting on the paper like that, solid, and then I can just move my brush around like this, and it's stable. Versus I don't want my hand dangling around up in the air like this. Then we'll get all kinds of weird. We don't want to have that. We want to keep a good stable technique, and that's resting your hand on the paper, and then you just dab on the paint and get your washes on there. So we're doing windows, and these are a little bit, you know. And then I rinse the brush off, just to rinse the brush off, tap a little bit of water off on the tissue, and go over here. Let's mix some warms in here with this. You can even go in and go straight into colors like that. But again, my hand's always on the paper, resting on the paper. That's all you have to remember, is keep that hand resting on your paper, on your pad of paper or your art table that you have your painting taped down to. And you can kind of see, I rinsed the brush off now, dry off some of the water. Use a damp brush too, just to make it a little lighter down here. There you go. Maybe we'll make this window a little bit farther down here. See, you can change things too when you're painting. That's the fun thing about watercolor. When you're painting, you can say, oh, you know what? I want to make this window a little larger. I think I drew it with my pencil a little bit smaller. Well, that's no problem. You just paint it right in there. No one's going to see that pencil line in your window. And even if they do see that pencil line, it looks good. It's kind of like a little interesting mark on the paper. All right, so we've accomplished our door and our two windows. They're nice and dark. We're starting with our darks. That's what the Prima method. You're starting with your darks first, and then we'll work into our lighter washes. So there we have it. And then now I'm just putting in some spots of color using these same colors. And the only thing I can do better is recall that you want to have warm and cool everywhere. So whenever you're putting a lot of warm colors on in your palette, always remember to add some cool colors as well right near there. We're going to want to add some cool colors into our, so you can infuse some cool colors, blue, into your washes like this. Very important to do that, to mix warm and cools everywhere. That really gives you a powerful looking color on your paintings. So you saw how I did that. I just added some blue in there. Purple you can add too. Purple looks great. Beautiful color. Purple's a beautiful color. Nice shadow color with sunlight. And then we're just continuing on here. We're doing more windows. And again, my hand is resting on the paper. And if you can imagine, if I zoom out a little bit here, you can kind of see. Let me see if we can do that. Just for a second, I want to just show something here. Okay, my board that I'm working on is all the way down here, so I can rest my hand down here like that. See how my hand is resting down there? And I can still rest my hand on that board and then use my brush like that. So I'm getting a good stable technique. And then if I swing around this way, up here, I have lots of extra board up here too. So you always want to have much more board, like you might have like a piece of masonite, which is that's what I use all the time, is masonite board. I think it's like a 1/4 inch, or even, I think it's 1/8 of an inch thick. You can get it at any hardware store or lumber supply. They can cut it for you right inside the big box store, like, you know, your Home Depots and Lowe's and places like that. They'll cut you to size, whatever size you need. So you might want to make like a 2 foot by 3 foot, maybe a 2 foot tall by 3 foot wide piece of masonite. And I'll show you how it looks. Let me grab a bit here. So this is masonite. It's brown in color. And it's not that thick. It's only like 1/8 of an inch thick, like that. And then that's what I have underneath here. So underneath my whole table, I have a piece of masonite with a 2x4 up top up here, a 2x4 back up here. And that gives me a little slight angle, right? And then on top of my masonite, I just put a piece of drawing paper just so I have a neat top on top, so that it looks good for all of you when you're looking at my videos. You're not seeing all kinds of messy looking paint everywhere. It kind of looks a little bit neater. So that's what I do for my table, right? And that's it. And it's a piece of masonite board. It's very, very sturdy. It's perfect for watercolor. And you can tape your paintings right to your masonite board. You can put it on a table with a little bit of an angle to it. You could put it in your lap. Maybe have a couple pieces made. Maybe have maybe make 3 different sizes for yourself. So if you want a smaller board you can put in your lap if you're sitting in a chair, you get one made that will fit where you're sitting in your chair if you might want to work sitting down. But you can get these cut, like again, they'll cut them at the big box stores, Home Depots, Lowe's, whatever place you have nearby where you live. If you don't feel comfortable going there and trying to figure that all out, you maybe have somebody that, like a friend or someone in your family that knows about construction and stuff like that, you know, somebody that's a handy person, and you can just tell them, hey, I need like 2 or 3 masonite boards, and I need them this size, and could you go to the, I'll pay you $20, and you can go to the place and have Home Depot or Lowe's cut them for you, and then they can go do that for you and bring it back, and you'll have some really nice boards to work with. Having the right art tools sometimes really makes a huge difference with things. With painting and having your art look good. If you're struggling to try to work with your paints and your paper and it can really make things much more difficult. So if you have a good working board that you can work on, a nice masonite board, you'll be much happier and your paintings are going to look much better because you'll be comfortable working. And this is all the things we learn as we go. And when we're painting in watercolor and we're an artist and we're starting to learn all the things we have to learn. It's a lot of things. Take your time. Just have fun with it all the way. So I just made my other windows here. starting with our darks first. Like we said, we wanted to start with our darks, and we accomplished that. We have done we've created all of our darks in our painting right now, the super rich darks, except for maybe where the bushes and trees are. And we'll add those in when we do the trees and the bushes in this painting. So we did add some darks in there too, here and there. But for the most part, these are all the darks. And I might have even went a little bit dark over here in the distance, and that's no problem. If you go a little dark in an area, you take your tissue and you just lift up like that. And you see how when I lifted that up, it turned those darker spots to very much lighter spots. And that's all we have to do to make that look more further in the distance, because that's what we want. We want a three-dimensional looking painting. So if you make these lighter and much cooler in color, maybe more bluish and cooler colors over here, that'll look like it's further in the distance, and that's what you want. Does that make sense? You want to have that three-dimensional look in your paintings, so it feels like, you know, it has real true depth to it, like you would see if you were outdoors looking at a scene. Okay? All right, so let's take a break. That's always, you'll always hear me say that. Take breaks. Take breaks every once in a while when you're painting. It helps you refresh, relax. You might sit down. If you work standing up at a table, I'm standing up right now when I do my YouTube videos. I like to sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and just maybe watch a YouTube video and relax and have a cup of coffee, and then I'll get back up and start working again. Maybe you work sitting down. Maybe you'll want to stand up if you're sitting down at a table, or, you know, if you have an easel or however you're working. Maybe if you're sitting down, you'll want to stand up and walk around a little bit, stretch your legs, you know, have a little drink of coffee or tea or whatever, or some cool beverages. And that's about what I do when I'm, you know, doing these videos. I'm just like you. I'm out there. I'm doing my artwork here, and I'm just basically kind of just giving you an insight into how I'm doing things here in my studio. But you're the same way. You're just out there. You're painting. You're drawing, getting things done. So we'll be right back, and we'll continue with this painting. Hey, we are back. We're going to start up again, and we got our darks in here. That's what we said when we're doing alla prima painting. We're going to want to start with the darks. So if we're doing alla prima painting, alla prima, we're going with darks first. Let's zoom back in here. This way we can kind of see our painting a little more, and I think that looks good there. You can see all of my palette. Perfect. Okay, right there. Now, so we've started our darks. Let's start doing our medium tonal values. So let's start working on, maybe let's do the roof of the house here, this gorgeous house. There's maybe some clay tile roof up on this roof here, and a chimney. Let's start with that up here, and then we'll work our way down here. Maybe we'll do our seawall, and then we'll come and we'll work over here. And again, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to tend to always work from left to right. That tends to be my habit. I always do. I just always start on the left side of my painting and work across this way. And already and if you have a little smudge or something, don't worry about it. And when you take breaks, that's what breaks do. Usually breaks accomplish things drying for you. And if things are drying, that's probably to a benefit, especially if you're just starting out. If you're, you know, an extreme beginner, you're just starting out, do a little bit, let it dry 100%. If you have to use a blow dryer, you can also speed the process up. That's a way to speed up your process for your drying times of your washes. If you want to have a blow dryer next to your working area, once you get done with maybe, let's say, all these windows, then you can blow dry with some heat and get those these windows dry. And then once you set back down and start working with your brush, you can rest your hand on top of this because it'll all be dry. And it's pretty dry now. Yeah, that's pretty dry. So next we're going in for our clay tile roof, which is some oranges and some reds. And we have some oranges and reds up here. We can also go back up there and use some of that. And we're just going to, you know, have a good variety. I rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a tissue, and a little bit of brown in here just to kind of mellow things out a little bit. There we go. All right, let's start with our Again, my hand's resting on the paper. And I'm just going to get some of that. And you can kind of see I'm moving my brush around in all different ways. So if you can move your brush around this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, that's going to look much better than just maybe doing everything like this, like you're painting a fence. So if you're painting a fence outside of your house, that's fine. You can use your paintbrush outside and paint your fence like this. But when you're doing artwork with these watercolor paintings, we have to do it differently. We have to kind of make it more interesting looking. So all we do is this way, hash mark your brush strokes like this. And that will result in a better looking, more dynamic looking wash on your paper. And we'll do that. And then we don't forget, let's mix in some cools with that. Warm and cool everywhere. Don't get into that one color idea of just using one color for everything. There we go. And I forgot to mention, and I'll mention it in just a second, then you can go back in and spice things up a little bit, like that. Then with a damp brush, you can then maybe we take a little bit of green, dark green, so this might be a dark green, a light green, a little bit of brown to make a olive green in the middle, and then we just pick up some of that and sort of mingle it in there because we're going to start our trees over here. It's a couple splashes, a little bit of finger painting. As long as you're mixing things up and adding a little bit of that color of the roof into your greens, you're going to be good. It's going to start to mingle and blend together and look like it's all making sense. So there, I'm just starting to take some of the green trees and bushes. This is a tree over here on the right. And just get a little bit of that working for us. So that those trees go up here a little bit by that roof. We leave a little bit of highlights on the paper, a little bit of the white paper. Now, we can go over here and do our chimney, which is basically the same oranges as the roof. And again, my hand is resting on the pad of paper, so I get a good stable brush stroke. As long as you have your hand stable on your watercolor paper, you're going to get good brush strokes. You're going to be able to go this way, up and down, side to side. You can do side to side, up and down, hash marks basically, you know, like that. Okay, so we have our roof done, and we have our chimney done, and we have some of our trees started over here with some greens, our dark green, our light green, and a little bit of brown to get that like olivey green look to it, which looks really good. A nice warm green. Olive green is like a warm green. So we're going to continue on here. I'm going to let this dry a little bit. Do a little more finger painting like that, just to blend that out a little bit. Rinse off the brush, dry off the brush here. Let's go back in, reds and oranges, and we're going to do our seawall here. Orange, dark orange, light orange, dark orange, a little bit of red, a little bit of brown, a little bit of that we're going to use that red there, and we have some blues over here. So I rinse off my brush now, dry off a little bit of the water on either a sponge next to your water pail, or you can dry it off on a paper towel or a tissue. And then we'll just add a little bit of blue in there, a little bit of blue up here too. And there we go. We're off and running like that. And what this does is we're kind of taking the colors of the roof and chimney up here, and we're bringing it down here to the lower section of the painting, which really looks like a good way to approach this painting, is to have harmony to the colors, repeating the colors all different areas of the painting. So you can see my hands resting on the paper, and I'm just doing careful, slow brush strokes just to get in these shapes. A couple darks. Okay, a little bit of dark here too, because we have these really dark windows. We want to try to sprinkle some more darks here and there too. So maybe a little bit along the underside of this seawall here, because there's going to be some vegetation hanging over this wall here. And we just blend it down. And then we're going to use some blue. We want to add some blue in there. So you can see I'm trying to mix some darks and warm and cool everywhere. Those beautiful reds and browns for the brickwork in the seawall. And then we just add a little bit of, and let's make a little light spot here. We're going to put some figures in by this boat, so we'll lighten that up a little bit there. And there's some water here too. Let's blend that water right in. Here, let's do the water like this. Leave some white paper and just blend some water in like that. Maybe we'll put some beautiful Viridian green. This is basically Viridian green that you have in your palette here. We're going to add that in too, like that. Let's add some of that Viridian green everywhere now. So once I add Viridian green into my water, now I know I've got to start adding it everywhere else, just little sprinkles of it. But that will really prove to be very helpful to make the whole painting look good. Okay, and then a little bit of that red too over here. So now you can kind of see I'm working the medium tones. These are still medium to dark. If you squint your eyes and you look at this painting, if you squint your eyes, you'll notice that these reds and browns in golden colors and orange colors are pretty dark. This here where the trees are, that's looking a little bit lighter. If you squint your eyes, you'll see that this area is a little bit lighter, but these windows are very, very dark. This is the darkest dark you're going to have in the painting, and then your oranges and reds, they look pretty dark too. If you squint your eyes, they're almost as dark as the windows, but not quite. So now we're really seeing that we've got our lights and our darks. Our darks and our medium darks here. Not quite super dark, but they're dark. These oranges and reds. And then now I think the rest is going to be mostly, well, this over here let's do this next. So let's get some more of that orangey and again, harmony to colors. Orangey red roof, orangey red buildings, orangey red seawall. With some brown mixed in there and some gold, some yellow. And since I have yellow, let me add a little bit of yellow. Now if you start to see your darker colors are starting to reactivate and have a problem, you take a tissue and just lift up, press down and lift up like that. You can go back in later. Carefully paint around it one more time. Mix a little more color here. Orange, yellow, red. So you're using your reds, your oranges, a little bit of brown too. And you just want to, and it's not all bad or terrible if your darker windows start to bleed a little bit, like where they're starting to give you a problem. You just blot it up with your tissue, and you can leave it go and let it dry, and then go back to that later toward the end of the painting. And then we're just always mixing colors and trying to add some warm and cools everywhere. And you can see I'm just mixing lots of colors. And then down here, a little cooler by the water. And there we go. So now you can kind of see that this beautiful house here is closest to us in the picture, in the painting, and then so are these buildings here. So we're making those the same intensity of color and tonal value, which is the dark and lightness of it. And then as these buildings go in the distance, they're going to become much lighter. So we just remember that. We talked about that before. But I'm going to let this dry here because I want it to sort of be a crisp edge along here like this. And then this next area of buildings here, these walls and windows, they're going to be a little lighter. So I want to let this dry along here. And we're going to continue over here. But before we do that, let's take a break. You don't have to take a break. Actually, if you want to keep working, you don't have to. But I like to take breaks again, so it's been about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm going to take another break, and we're really almost completed with this painting. We have the majority of the detailed work completed. So we'll see how we finish up the rest of the painting, and you'll really have a fun time completing this painting. We've got the hard work done now. The drawing was the most difficult part of it, really. And then once that's done, and then we have these darker darks here, the main powerful sort of darker tonal values in our painting. Once that's done, we're pretty much home free. And then now we're just going to finish doing our bushes over here and trees and our lighter washes for the buildings and the sky, and we'll be completed. Okay, so we'll be right back in just a second. And again, I always mention too, if you just joined in now and you forgot before, I always say subscribe on the right-hand side of the below the video right here. If you hit subscribe, feel free. You'll get my videos every week that we are working on, so you'll be able to jump right in and work on our artwork here that we're doing, our watercolors, everything 100% watercolor on my channel. We change different subject matter. So next week we might be doing flowers or ocean scenes. Today we're doing a scene by maybe in Italy, in Venice, where you have all the beautiful waterways and the buildings and the houses, beautiful homes, and the beautiful boats and the clay tile roofs and things like that. And so we're having a lot of fun doing this subject matter, but maybe next week you're going to want to tune in. We might be doing flowers. So don't forget, if you subscribe on the right-hand side below, you won't miss any videos because you'll be alerted when the new video comes out that I do next week, okay? Or maybe even in the middle of the week I'll do a video. Who knows? But anyway, you'll get alerted when my new videos come out. So again, let's take a break, and I'll be back in just a second or two. And once again, we are starting back up. I took a little break. I hope you don't mind. Is that okay? I take a break once in a while. So you can see now we have our, like we were saying, we have the darks, the like really super darks of the windows and doors. And then the medium darks, which would be the building, the roof, the chimney, the seawall over here. So we can kind of see that is an important part of the alla prima process, which is you're getting your darker tonal values and paints and washes on your paper first. And it makes it easier because you can kind of see, all right, those are our darks now. The rest of the painting, we're going to go lighter. So you kind of have your darks here, and that's your guide. So now all the rest of the washes, for the most part, are going to be lighter. There will be some darker washes in the bushes and the trees here, but for the most part, other than that, everything else is going to be a little bit lighter. Same thing with the sky. The sky is going to be a lot lighter. So let's continue on. I'm going to do as I always do. I've got some muddy looking water in my pail. I'm going to empty that out. Add some fresh clean water, especially when you're doing lighter washes. Like whenever you're going to go in and do a sky wash, which tends to be very light, like blues, like, you know, you lots of blue colors, light blues. You wouldn't want to use muddy looking water in that section of your painting in the sky or in the water. So you're going to want to use fresh, clean water a lot. So the best rule of thumb is always try to change your water a lot when you're painting. This way you don't run the risk of muddying up colors too much, because you want to get some really light lights in your sky and your water and other areas too, like the distant colors here. So our palette is still looking okay, but I think at this point you can kind of see we've mixed a lot of colors so far when we did our darks here, and that's the colors are looking a little bit like they're kind of getting a little muddy looking for me. So what I'm going to do is take a spritzer bottle, spritz the palette quick, and then paper towel like that, and we just lift up all that paint for the most part. The dark over here, you're like, the black is okay to stay over there because that's really, really dark. You're not going to see any problem with that when you're painting. But the rest we need to clean up a little bit. Okay, so we did that. We changed our water, and now we're ready to paint again. So we are going to start painting our greens for our bushes. So we're going to stay with our same. Let's see, what did we do here? I think we mixed our greens up over here. In any case, we're going to mix our greens over here. The lighter green, the darker green over here. If you need to spritz a little bit of water onto the palette again, onto the paints, you do that. You just, a quick little 1, 2. Good. Then you add a little bit of brown to the center of those mixes there. Dry off of the brush a little bit, and just you get a little bit of that olive green look there in the center between the two. Then we're going to add some orange, dark orange, red. So we have reds and oranges. Here, a little bit of brown, 2 mixed in there. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the paint, and then we have a good color mix happening, as well as some blue. Let's put some blue down here, in this section over here, and then some greens and blues over here. And I'm going to splash around a little bit. This painting may not look exactly like the other painting we were looking at. So this is our pretty much what we want for the most part, this painting to look like. But if you change a few things, that's okay too. But I notice needs to be more gold color here. More of that fresh looking green with the yellow mixed in. And we've got our greens with warms mixed in too. Splashes, I do a little bit of splashing usually. That gives you that kind of feel of leaves and things like that. So I just add some splashes there. Maybe a little bit of darks up here too. Those darks look good. They kind of balance the darks throughout. Maybe a little bit of dark over there too. And you can see this is looking very good. Straight yellow. Okay, now let's start working on those distant. Before we do the distant buildings, let's do these here. And as you can see, just a quick wash on here, not too much. Don't spend too much time over here. It'll wind up giving you problems if you're painting over those dark windows. So maybe try to paint around those dark windows if you can. Maybe just get some washes on there. Warm and cool colors. And you can see we're getting lighter as we go. And then now over here on the far left side of these buildings where the buildings are trailing off into the distance, those are going to be your cooler. Let's make them cool, those buildings. Maybe some blues and greens with a little bit of warm tones in there too. Not all one color, mix it up, but this just goes quick. Like that. Okay, so there we have the buildings trailing in the distance, very much lighter and cooler. You always have a little bit of time to dab in some colors when you're working with watercolors. You have to do it fast though. Quickly. Once you put on a wash, if you want to infuse some colors or charge in some different colors, it's fine to do it. You just have to do it pretty much quickly. And you can see I'm taking the colors from the bushes and putting them over here too a little bit. Okay, now let's get a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of the darks along this waterway, and then as it goes this way, lighter yet, like that. And let's start working on our sky wash. And again, for my sky wash, I'm going to empty my paint bucket, my water bucket, I should say. Water's getting too murky and muddy for me, so therefore we will take fresh, clean water. Add that in. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to try to work very carefully along these buildings here because these are still wet, these washes along the buildings here, so you can kind of see that. Along these building tops here, the paper's still wet from doing those washes just, like a minute or two ago, but I do want to start my sky wash, so I just want to be very careful not to go too close to the building tops here. If I can help it, I think I'm going to stick with that game plan of being very careful along this here where all these buildings are, where I did my washes just a few minutes ago. We could take a blow dryer and blow dry this. Maybe that's the thing to do. I'll take a quick break and blow dry this all so you can kind of see where I'm at. When you're mixing or when you're putting on washes, whenever you're working close to other washes you've just painted, you run the risk of having the paint sort of, blossom and cauliflower and start to mix and mingle all into everything, and it kind of gets to be a blurry mess. To avoid that, you got one or two choices. One, you take a break for 15 or 20 minutes and let this dry, or the second choice is if you have a blow dryer, you take a blow dryer and blow dry this section of these buildings over here, and on the heat setting, so you have your blow dryer with the heat on, and you heat this up and just do a quick, maybe for 30 seconds or a minute. That if we can get this all dry, then we can do our sky wash, because this is all dry from before. We did this like a 45 minutes ago or a half an hour ago, the roof and the chimney, so that won't be a problem. And this over here is already dry, the bushes for the most part. So as you can see, we just painted these buildings. Again, you can either, you have two choices at this point. One, you can let this dry naturally for a half an hour to an hour, or two, blow dry it, and this way you can start working again on the sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the pause button on the video here, use the blow dryer, dry off this section over here, and then we'll come back and we'll start doing our sky and the rest of the water, and then we'll pretty much just have a few details left. Okay, so just wanted to make you aware of that. Does that make sense? That, you have those two choices. You can let it dry naturally, or you can use the blow dryer. That's basically it. Other than that, if you ignore those two choices, then you're going to have these colors here starting to bleed into the sky color, and it might turn out to be a blotchy kind of mess. So don't let that happen. Take the two choices you have, an hour break to let this dry, or two, blow dry it and let it, dry it off really quick, and then you can start back and work again on it, on the sky wash. Okay? Just want to leave you that choice. You have choices on watercolors all the time, and let's continue on. Okay, everyone, we're getting to the final stages of the painting, and we just left off, I mentioned you had the two choices, either blow drying this to dry it or letting it dry naturally for like an hour. I just used the blow dryer really quick and dried this off over here on these buildings. So now we can go in and do our sky wash. So our sky wash is, let's use our larger brush here. Let's use our Simply Simmons number 6. Fresh, clean water. So when you're doing your sky wash, you have to empty your water pail and create fresh, clean water so that you get a really good, transparent looking sky wash. So I'm using the darker blue and the lighter blue here, like that. Now another a really cool thing you can do to spice up your sky wash is to take fresh, clean water and just kind of put it here and there, not everywhere, but put it in a couple, we use the fresh, clean water from our water pail, and we maybe dry off just a little bit on the tissue so we don't flood too much water on there, but just add some fresh, clean water to dampen the paper just in a few spots here and there, not everywhere, just a few spots. And that's going to actually add to the excitement of the washes. Now we go in, we'll pick up some blue, our two blues. And you can see too, when you dampen the paper, the watercolor flows out onto your paper, which makes it look exciting. Now what you can do is add a touch of brown to your watercolor wash, just to give it some variety. And I'm going to leave some white paper for some clouds here and there. Add some more blue in there. Maybe you do a couple really dark spots of blue up at the top, like that. Sky is generally, a good rule of thumb is the sky is usually very dark at the top and then as it goes into the far distance over here, it gets lighter. So if you stick with that rule with your sky washes, you'll always have a good looking sky wash for the most part. I've done some pretty rough looking skies when I first started, so I don't want to have you go the wrong way. And as you can see, it lightens up here like that. And we're going to go across here too for a shadow. Not too, but you can kind of see how that flows nicely. For our sky wash, and then we always say, let's take a touch of orange over here, just a little bit of orange, in the distant, far distant sky. Like that. And you can mix a little bit of blue in there too. But that little bit of orange in there really makes it look realistic. Like that. And then even a little bit of orange up here. Very carefully though, and not too much. How does that look out there? Does that look pretty good? And then we go with some green, some Viridian looking green here. We just want to, like that. That's dark here. Like that. So water kind of has a like that. Now, shadow under the eave of this roof. That's going to be blue. We'll just use the sky wash. And we'll add a little bit of orange and red. Warm and cool everywhere. A little bit of gold in there, yellow. Now we have just a few details left. Let's switch over to our original prang brush. This is our original brush that we have with our set. You could do this whole painting with this one brush if you had to. You might want to make it a little smaller, the painting. You can work in very small, especially if you're a beginner, you're better off working in smaller size paintings. And then as you get more experience, then you can upsize your paintings until eventually you can do very, very large paintings. But at first, when you're first starting out, you're going to want to probably try to create smaller paintings first. That really works well. Okay, so now I'm going to do a few things here. Let's do this. Let's take a little bit of blue and just dab a couple spots of blue on the bottom of the boat. Very super light wash of blue on the bottom of the boat. You can only do this if you have fresh, clean water in your water pail. If you went into your water pail and it was all muddy water, you couldn't do this. But now we can kind of do this. We're doing that really light wash of blue just on the bottom of the boat. Then we're going to take a little more of a darker blue, and we're going to do this. We're going to do a little, the glass window on the boat, like that. And then to get even more detailed, let's dry off our brush. Let's take some red, and just a little tiny bit of red, and we'll make a red stripe on the boat, like this. And if you have to kind of take your brush and you have to kind of roll around your brush. You have to roll around your brush to get a round, to get a point on it. So you roll your brush around in a circle if you can, like that, so it gets more pointy, like that. And then you can do more of a fine line like that. Just a little bit of red striping on the boat. And that's going to jazz that boat up just a little bit. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit of that darker color. We just want to have a little bit of the darker shoreline here, just to kind of lead the eye into the further distance there. We can leave the rest of the buildings just the way they are. You might go with a little bit of, maybe just a little bit of some vertical lines, very lightly though, and just kind of dashed lines. You don't want to maybe make them as, and then you can always lighten it up and just blot off some of that too. So you paint a little bit and then you just blot up a little bit. And then you wind up, your end result is you have some good definition to the buildings, but not too much, like that. So that's good. And the only thing else I see is we want to do our dark brown, black, and red. We mix a kind of a mix of brown, black, and red. We dry off the brush with our paint on it, just so we have a tiny bit of paint on our brush, and we're just going to do our wrought iron railing here. So there's a little bit of a balcony here with some wrought iron, like that. And then maybe we'll go with some orange clay pots up top here. That's all, just like that. And maybe we want to make it more interesting. Let's get some straight red paint, no water, just straight paint. And let's make these red, really bright red. See how that looks. That looks pretty good. And you can always add a couple. You can always add a couple little bits of really, really vibrant, exciting color, like that. And maybe the same up here too. Let's add some. So I add a little bit of that really, really bright, exciting, straight out of the tube paint, so to speak. It's straight out of the palette. Straight out of the palette, no water, no nothing, just straight paint. Then I take my brush, rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit on the tissue, and then let's just kind of blot this around a little bit and just like that, and kind of mellow it out, smooth it out. But those little bits of extra exciting color will add to the beauty of the painting. Maybe a little bit of blue. So we're doing warm and cool everywhere. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue along the edge of this over here. And this could use a little more extra bit of wash, I think. So you can see I'm adding a little bit of a darker wash over here on this building next to this one. This one's much darker, so to speak, when you talk about tonal values and the tone of the painting, the darks and lights of your painting. And then they get lighter as they go, the buildings, and then maybe a few more like that. And I think that's fine. Okay, so we have everything completed. Let's do a couple figures in the boat. So we're going to do maybe someone with a red shirt here. There. And then maybe someone here with a blue shirt. And they're driving the boat. And there's a person there sitting. And I just roll my brush around so I get a good point on my brush. And I just do a little, we do some head and shoulders here on the figures, that's all. So you have a few figures in the boat. Okay, we have some figures in the boat. We have the lovely water, the sky washes, this beautiful house here, and the buildings along the side of this gorgeous canal. I hope you had fun doing this painting. Try it once, try it again, try it 2-3 times until you get it just right, the way you like it, and you'll be very happy with it. It's very fun, lots of colors mixing everywhere, and I'm so happy that you're here painting with us. We're having a great time on Extreme Beginner Series watercolors on my channel here. And again, I always mention, please feel free to subscribe on the right-hand side below. There's the subscribe button. You hit subscribe. This way you know the videos are going to come to your YouTube channel right away, so you'll be alerted when the new videos come out. And you won't lose me as far as, you know, sometimes I know myself, I've watched some great videos and then I go back to see if I can find it and I can't find it, you know, the videos. So if you subscribe, then you're just going to be able to find me really easily because it'll be saved on your YouTube channel. And that's really the point of it, is to subscribe so that you can stay here, work along with us, have fun with watercolors. And again, if you're just starting out, welcome. If it's your first time painting with us, or if you just started recently, I want to thank you so much for coming by. You're going to have a great time learning watercolor. Anyone can do watercolor. It's just a matter of doing the steps, the techniques and the methods over and over and over again until you're comfortable with them. And then you'll have a solid technique to work from there. And then from there, you take it wherever you want to go. You can change your techniques and styles as long as you learn a basic fundamental way of painting like we do here on my channel. Once you learn that, then you can branch out and do whatever you want. And as well, maybe if some of you just don't, well, you're just not getting it, you don't like it, that's fine too. There's tons of other art out there that you can do. You can choose sculpture. You can do pottery, sculpture. You can do basket weaving. You can do charcoals. You know, you can work with charcoal pencils. You can do inks. Just use plain old ink and paper. You can do, there's so many great things you can do. Oil painting, acrylic painting. There's all kinds of different mediums out there, so don't ever get discouraged if you don't like watercolor. Some people may find, some of you may find you just can't, you can't get it, you're just frustrated with it. That's no problem. Maybe you just watch for fun here and just, you'll be learning things anyway and having a fun time watching us, and you can turn the volume off if you don't want to hear me kind of going on and on about, you know, the techniques of watercolor. That's fine. You can just watch it for, you know, fun, see how a painting develops. But for the most part, most people here that are following me are getting really great results. I get nothing but excellent feedback. Once in a blue moon, I'll hear somebody say something like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm getting it, but that's fine. That's totally normal. But if you just stick with it, stick with the basics. Drawing, you want to just practice your drawing a little bit every day, 10, 15 minutes a day of drawing, scribbling on a piece of any old paper. And then you do that 10, 15 minutes a day. And then on the weekends, when you have more time, if you have more time on the weekends, maybe you have more time during the week. I'm not sure your schedule, but to make a long story short, as long as you're doing a little bit of drawing and a little bit of painting on a consistent basis, you will get it. You will be able to paint watercolors. I guarantee it. Okay? So keep coming back, and we're going to have lots of fun here together. The only thing I think I left out here on this painting, which I always like to do, is if you have a lot of white paper here where this wall is on this house here, this beautiful house along the waterway, you're going to want to add just a touch of that lemony yellow color. And even a little bit of orange. And what that does is that makes it feel very warm, like sunny sunlight hitting that stucco wall, or that might be some stucco here or some plaster. But if you add just that little touch of lemony yellow, can you see that? That little touch of lemon yellow will give it that little zip of, same thing down here on the boat. A little touch of lemon yellow on the side of that boat will kind of give you that feeling of bright sunlight in this painting. We'll see you on the next video, everyone. Thanks so much for coming by. It's great painting with you.